we have a bit of a problem with a couple of pregnancies in the high school, so we need a sex education program. Well, probably, in most cases, they would target the schools that, or the towns that had the least problems, because they want to create the problem. I'll never forget in Michigan, some parents calling me and saying, we can't understand why on earth are they putting in the comprehensive health education in this community, because we don't have any pregnancies, we don't even have problems with the kids drinking or drugs or anything. Why are they putting it here? I said, because you don't. The goal is to get you to have the problem. And when they can crash the morals and values, and they can crash the academics, then they can impose the totalitarian system, which is George Bush is putting in right now. Clinton before, Bush Sr. before, Reagan before, Carter before, whoever, Nixon, they've all been in it. I mean, all the way pre-World War I. We have had, every single president has had the same agenda. Might as well make that clear. And I mean, sometimes the end of an interview comes and the guy will say, well, do you have anything you want to say? And I say, yeah, there's only one thing you have to remember when you go home, and this is easy. There isn't any difference between the Republican and the Democratic parties at the top. And this has been planned ever since the late 1800s. Carroll Quigley said this in Tragedy and Hope. Carroll Quigley was Clinton's mentor at Georgetown University, and he wrote this great book, Tragedy and Hope. He was an insider inside the economic, financial elite, right? CF, Council on Foreign Relations, all that. And he didn't have a problem with the idea of world government, which is their goal, but he did say it shouldn't be kept secret from the people. And he was the one who talked about in the late 1800s when the financial elite got together and they said, if we're going to have this international system, we're going to have to control both parties at the top, so that when the voters go to the polls, they'll pull a thing and they won't know that it doesn't make any difference who they vote for. They're going to get they won't know that. And that's the most important thing for Americans to remember right now. It doesn't make any difference. I mean, people thought that George Bush was going to be a good Christian conservative coming. They should have known better. They should have known that he's not far from his father or his grandfather. But they didn't want to listen. I mean, if I said that, they'd say, oh, we're conspiracy. It's another subject. Of course it's conspiracy. It's the only country in the world that doesn't accept the idea of conspiracy. The only country in the world. Now, I've lived all over the world. All other foreigners and people, and I don't care, you've traveled enough. There's never been anything that happened in this world politically that wasn't a conspiracy.
Well, the Bible is full of conspiracies.
I always say it started with Adam and Eve. Yeah. It's full of it. Conspiracy. And Americans have fallen for this. So whenever anybody tells the truth, or, maybe they're not telling the truth, but whenever anybody comes up with some research that they've done, if it doesn't agree with the agenda, and if it exposes the agenda, then they're accused of being a conspiracy buff. It's a conspiracy.
Or conspiracy theory.
Yeah. Conspiracy theory. And so anyway, I went to that training, and I was just blown away by it. And then I went on, started an organization in the state of Maine, Guardians of Education for Maine, which was very effective in the 70s. We did manage to knock out the health education from about a third of the districts in the state of Maine. And then because I had been very activist, I had a friend in White House personnel when Reagan had been elected, and I was a Reagan supporter, a very strong supporter of Ronald Reagan. I didn't want to listen to the Southern California people who had warned all of us that Reagan was not what he pretended to be. And I didn't listen because, you want to hold on to your positive feelings about people. You want to believe in something and someone, and we're all that way. And all I can say is that I've been there. I've believed in a lot of the conservative leadership, and now I'm absolutely devastated by what they've done. They've been told it's treason what they've pulled on this country, the conservative leadership, and they don't like me because I've blown the whistle on them, and the left doesn't particularly like me either, but they find me. I don't get anywhere near the flack from the left as I get from the neoconservatives. They hate me. And they've hated me ever since I wrote my first little book, Back to Basics Reform or Skinnerian International Curriculum. And then it says, in a little asterisk below, very little book, it says, necessary for United States participation in a one-world government planned for the early years of the 21st century. It's a long title, little 38-page book that explained exactly what was going to happen in 1985. I wrote it after I was dismissed from my job in the U.S. Department of Ed. I got the job through the White House personnel. What I saw there was so shocking that I leaked a document on the computerization of the curriculum for all American schools. The federal, coming out of my office, the funding of this technology initiative, I leaked it to the Human Events. And they did a very good article. That was before Human Events really went. And they did a good article on it, big one, big front page thing. And I got fired, basically. But I'd gotten all the incredible documents out of my office, which was probably the most important office in the world for education change, international system of education, because U.S. is an important country. And I was in the Office of Educational Research and Improvement. I was a senior policy advisor. Not that I really merited that job, but we were supposed to be getting rid of the Department of Education. Reagan had promised that. And so they just put anybody into any slot. It didn't make any difference because we were meant to be getting rid of it. So I was lucky enough to be plopped into that slot, which meant that I was sitting in an office immersed in all the old research, all the old grants and contracts, all the new ones,
what contracts?
Grants and contracts going all over the world, not just to U.S. universities and laboratories and centers, all over the world, to change education from academics to total brainwashing and the Soviet polytech system, school to work, Cuban system, German system, where the children have absolutely no choice in their future occupation. They start training them, in third, fourth grade for what they're going to be. The agreement is made between industry and government. That's Soviet system if people don't know it. Of course, they don't have free enterprise industry, but they have industry. And that's part of the Soviet plan, right, the platform. And the same thing here now with partnerships between business and the schools, putting in this terrible system, this totally controlled system where you have quotas, this many doctors, this many lawyers. This is determined by the government and industry and the universities. How many ballet dancers? People understand that because that was the Soviet Union, etc. So it's a planned economy, and they do not educate. This is a direct quote from Professor Boyce, Eugene Boyce, University of Georgia. They do not educate for jobs that do not exist. He wrote a very interesting book on that, and he was not a conservative, but he was talking about the Soviet system. Same thing here. They're not going to educate your child in Bath, Maine to be whatever she may want to be. Maybe she's going to want to be a landscape artist, If there isn't an opening, or a lot of people out there who need that, she won't get an education here. She'll have to move elsewhere. Okay. So anyway, that my office was devastating. The values, attitudes, values, and beliefs program, the change programs to destroy values that I found for elementary school throughout the country. One was in Michigan, Lansing, Michigan. Or where they pre- and post-tested little kids before the program, pre-test to see where the values were, put them through the program, ask them all about mom and dad, what goes on at home, what's this, what's that, all to do with their behavior and attitudes. And after the program's finished,